What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the BR Draft Board Show presented by Snickers. I'm Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus, and we got a fun show here for you today. It is 3 weeks from night one of the NFL Draft today. So in order to celebrate, I'm going to give you a brand new what I think will happen mock draft. So we're going through the entire first round. All 32 NFL teams will be represented. We'll have a lot of fun conversations about who I think each team is selecting. It's going to be a good time. If you guys want to follow along at home, or after I get done with this mock draft, whether you like my picks or you hate them, feel like you could do your own mock draft, head on over to pff.com/mock. Use the PFF mock draft simulator. That's how I'm going to be running through this brand new first round mock draft, and you can do the same over at pff.com/mock. So look, let's get into it. We have a lot of conversation to be had, 32 picks to get through over the next 45 minutes to an hour. I like to talk, so it's probably going to be closer to an hour, but let's start with the Tennessee Titans. What are the Tennessee Titans going to do at number 1 overall? If you pay attention to the regular betting apps, you would know that it's becoming the overwhelming favorite that Cam Ward is going to be the selection to the Tennessee Titans. I don't think that's a smokescreen. Even though we are in the middle of smokescreen season, I really do think that this one is going to be Cam Ward. The Titans did not do enough at the quarterback position in free agency to make me think that they would go any other direction, including a trade back. They could have the opportunity to move back basically anywhere. They could move back one spot with the Browns, who need a quarterback, the Giants at number 3, basically anybody. Shoot, somebody could trade up for Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. Even a non-quarterback team could want to get up to number 1 overall for that, but I think the Titans have to go Cam Ward at number 1. I don't think they can trade this pick, and I do not think they will. Now, Cam Ward is somebody who I think is worthy of this selection. Of any of the quarterbacks in this class who I think have all pro potential, this is the guy who has the talent level to be able to achieve it. So for the Titans, they cannot just go into next year with Will Levis as their starting quarterback. They have to have some sort of a better option, because you just can't sell that to the fan base. You really can't. Will Levis had every opportunity to earn the starting job as a long-term option for them last year, and he wasn't able to do it. Now, I'm not saying that, he's a bum and he's never going to start again in the NFL, but for next year specifically, the Titans have to have something different. That something different is Cam Ward. Ton of big-time throws, a lot of really good play under pressure. Now, it's not always perfect. He does have a lower floor than maybe you would like for a quarterback who's going number 1 overall, but at least he presents the ceiling that you would be happy with. So we're going to go with Cam Ward, and Cam Ward is the quarterback who is picked number 1 overall most over at the PFF mock draft simulator. His average draft position is right around a 2.8. So if he happens to not go number 1, if it's Travis Hunter, if it's Abdul Carter, this guy is not even close, really, that first quarterback off the board. So that brings the Browns on the board at number 2. This is one where the conversations are all over the place, right? Is it mixed signals? Is it signaling that they're going to take a quarterback? Look at what happened with Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's like, hey, I'm out. I'm out of here. You guys took a swing and a miss on Deshaun Watson. I've been here my entire career. I ain't going anywhere when it comes to the playoffs, or I'm no closer to winning a Super Bowl. I got to get out of here. And then all of a sudden, I understand he got a lot of money to be able to say this, but he said that he sat down with the decision makers in Cleveland and he liked where their head was at in terms of the quarterback position. They still haven't done anything in that regard. Bringing in Kenny Pickett, all due respect, Super Bowl champion, that's not going to move the needle enough to continue to make Myles Garrett happy. As of right now, I'm going to say they go quarterback, because until they tell me otherwise, I think they've got to make some sort of a change. At the owners' meeting, the Haslams themselves said this week it was a swing and a miss, and that was the first time that they had fully admitted that the Deshaun Watson experiment, whichever word actually works better for that situation, is over. I'm going to have them taking Shedeur Sanders here at number 2 overall. Now, Shedeur's range is all over the place. He could be the number 2 overall pick in this draft. He could go in the 2nd round in this draft. Ultimately, I don't know. I don't know exactly where it's going to be. But again, until Cleveland does something at that position before the draft, which we're sort of running out of time here, to tell me that they're going to have other options that they feel good about, they've got to get a new quarterback to have hope in. And when you look at what Shedeur has done over the last couple of years at Colorado, you can understand that. This is somebody who has really played well under pressure, understands the game already, understands how to read defenses in the pre-snap and in the post-snap spots. He's not afraid of the big moment. He's got that ice in his veins. Now, I have my reservations about him just because he's not the most mobile. He's not the most athletic quarterback that we have that come through the NFL draft. And I just think his arm talent is good enough for the NFL level. I don't think it's like a get out of trouble type of arm talent that he has. So with that being the case, I'd be much more comfortable drafting a player like Shedeur Sanders on day 2, but the NFL don't work like that. You basically have a quarterback or you don't. And the Cleveland Browns don't have a quarterback, and they need one to believe in. I like Shedeur more than, say, Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart, who are other quarterbacks who are sort of in this conversation for where they're going to go in this draft. If anyone's going to go number 2 after Cam Ward, it would be Shedeur Sanders. So I'm going to have the Cleveland Browns taking him here at number 2. That puts the Giants on the clock at number 3. They at least have done something, right? And that was the most perplexing part to me about the free agency period, is how little the Giants, the Browns, and the Titans did to address the quarterback position. Now, since free agency has kicked off, the Giants have signed Russell Wilson. They've also signed Jameis Winston. They brought back Tommy DeVito, or Tommy DeVito is just still there. That at least gives you something. So if the scenario plays out where the top 2 quarterbacks are off the board, you don't think to yourself, well, now we got to take Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart. Because in my opinion, that is a massive overdraft of those 2 players. Even if they present starting caliber talent for the NFL level, they are not there when it comes to consistency yet. So you don't want to throw them out there in a win or get fired type of a hot seat year for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll anyways. Instead, they at least have 2 quarterbacks who have started in this league before, have had success in this league before, and you get to take a player like Travis Hunter. I think the Giants will love Travis Hunter. I think that he is their perfect player outside of a quarterback because he hits 2 of their biggest needs: a playmaking wide receiver to help Malik Neighbors, and allows them to play him at cornerback as well. I think this is a team that could give Travis Hunter the ability to start on both sides of the football. I don't know exactly where he would play with the Giants, but I know that he would be an upgrade at both spots, and he could be a Pro Bowl type of talent at both spots at wide receiver and corner. So to me, the conversation is just, why would you limit this guy from what we've seen at the college football level? I do not think that he gets enough credit for the high IQ that this guy has when it comes to playing the game of football. Yes, he is athletically gifted. Yes, he is physically gifted. But in order to play the position at the success level that Travis Hunter has over the last 2 years, you have to understand the game, the athleticism, the technique, the geometry, the angles, the math of when you need to kind of calculate this. That goes into instincts, the ball skills that he has. All of this is what makes him a phenomenal football player. And I don't think the Giants would pass on him. So I'm going Travis Hunter here at number 3, which leaves the New England Patriots to have quite the gift at number 4. For a talent like Abdul Carter to get to number 4 overall, I mean, it's truly a gift. It really is. There's no other way to say it for the New England Patriots. I don't think the signing of Harold Landry keeps you from drafting a player like this. Now, with him on the board, I think that the Patriots would at least talk about a trade, right? I think that the phone lines would be open here. They would be open to wheeling and dealing, especially because of how many additions they made to the defensive side of the football. It's not just adding Harold Landry, but it was Milton Williams, it was Robert Spillane, it was Carlton Davis. A lot of players that are going to be difference makers here on this Patriots defense. But Abdul Carter would absolutely be one of those players as well, and might even be at the top of the list, even over a guy like a Milton Williams. So to have Abdul Carter and then Keon White, who is an ascending player on the other side of the line of scrimmage, they are winning up front on the defensive line. You know Mike Vrabel wants to do that. He's a guy who's definitely going to want to win from the trenches. So even though I'd consider a trade down here, in my opinion, if Abdul Carter's on the board, you're not even thinking about a Will Campbell, a Tetro McMillan, guys whose names we're going to say very quickly here in these next couple of picks because they're in this range. They're not at Carter's level, though. So I think that it would be a sprint up to the podium type of a thing for the Patriots, although maybe I shouldn't say that because at least they're going to open up the phones and talk about trading back. I don't think they would. Jags at number 5. New regime here with the Jacksonville Jaguars. James Gladstone, the new general manager there, coming over from the Los Angeles Rams. Liam Cohen as their head coach, first-time head coach for him, coming over from being the play caller of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that they would go more towards the defensive line, in my opinion. I think they have a couple of different options here. They could invest in the offensive line. Like if you get a Will Campbell, okay, he might be able to play guard at one of those spots for you. You could kick him out the tackle if you don't like how Anton Harrison or Walker Little are playing. Because remember, Walker Little got an extension last year, but that was with a different regime. That was with a different coaching staff and a general manager group. So this is totally different here. So I would say that Will Campbell's still on the board for them. But I think they're going to go Mason Graham. I think Mason Graham is the more proven player. I think that even with the short arms, they feel great about the overall production. This is somebody who, when you look at his average draft position in the PFF mock draft simulator, it's right around 6.2. So this is right in the range. And he normally doesn't get too much further than that. It's because he's an absolute ox when it comes to how he defends the run. Elite run defense grades over at PFF over the last 2 years. And he gives you that bonus pass rush juice as well. Not the highest pass rush win percentage for an interior defensive lineman, but at least something that you feel good about there to give you those splash plays. So you talk about a defensive line that would have Josh Hines, Allen, Arik Armstead, and Trayvon Walker. That is a feared foursome right there on the defensive line for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you know that James Gladstone is going to want to build this team through the trenches as he starts to sort of make that in his image as a new general manager there. So I'm going to go with Mason Graham there at number 5 for Jacksonville, which puts the Raiders on the clock here. And the big question is, do they take the running back? Do they take Ashton Jeanty here? And I think the conversation isn't about, is Ashton Jeanty worth the number 6 overall pick? I think the better conversation is, are the Raiders at the point of team building where this ends up being the best selection for them? Because let's talk about the Saquon Barkley conversation. I think that's a good way to sort of encapsulate this. Saquon, you see what he did with the Philadelphia Eagles over the last year. And I think Giants fans are kicking themselves because he was a franchise legend. And you go, how do we let this guy out of the building? Look at what he was doing with the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, the fact of the matter is, the Eagles had their roster already ready for a player like that to get the most out of his skill set. And I think for the running back position, that matters a lot. Saquon, even if he had a fully healthy season, would not have done the same thing in New York that he did in Philadelphia this past season. So now bringing that to a draft conversation, are the Raiders where they need to be as a team from a team building perspective to draft that running back at 6 overall? I think they could be. I like the offensive line. Maybe there's a little bit of question mark of who's playing right tackle, but it seems that they like DJ Glaze. So at least you feel good about the offensive line there. I get worried about the fact that their wide receiver room is untouched and not really a good unit from the previous season. Their secondary really struggled last year. And I think in the defensive trenches, they could use a little bit of an upgrade as well. So where Ashton Jeanty could be a good pick for them, I would go with an impact player at a different position. I'm going to go with Tetairoa McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. This is a player this is my wide receiver 1. And I feel like we're nitpicking him at this point. Does he run routes like a guy who's 5'10"? No. But he's not 5'10". He's 6'5". Is he going to be the fastest wide receiver out there? No. But Drake London wasn't either. Drake London did not run a 40-yard dash when he was coming through. And guess what? He's been all right. He's been pretty good at the NFL level. I feel like the comparisons are there. And in fact, I think that Tetairoa McMillan, you see it on the screen there, he has got the mentality and he's got a little bit of extra juice to give you that yards after catch. So he does the big receiver things that you want him to do, winning quickly with slants, winning at contested catch opportunities in the end zone, and even just over the middle of the field. And then he gives you a little bit of quickness when it comes to that yards after catch work. So to me, he immediately becomes wide receiver 1. He pairs with a quarterback like Geno Smith, who is used to throwing up those deep passes to guys like DK Metcalf, like he was doing when he was in Seattle. Now he gets to have that familiarity and that same type of a player with Tetairoa McMillan. So I think that this is a great selection for them. And even though I wouldn't take Ashton Jeanty off the board entirely, I have McMillan number 3 overall on my big board. So this is not only a pick that I think behooves them, but it's also one that really stays true to my big board, which I'm trying to do here as well, which you can see my full big board again over at pff.com if you guys want to see how I have all of these players ranked independent of sort of what I think will happen mock draft. Now, this brings up the New York Jets. And for the Jets specifically, I think that it's time for a satisfying selection brought to you by Snickers Ice Cream. All chill, no fumbles. Didn't want to mix that one up with Snickers Ice Cream, which I got to say, the weather turning a little bit. It's kind of the perfect time for a Snickers Ice Cream. So I think that this sponsorship's coming right in time here. But look, with Snickers, we want to take a satisfying selection here for the New York Jets. And I think the players that are available for them allows us to do that really well. There is one specifically in my mind that I think is the most satisfying amongst the players that we're going to talk about here. So Mason Graham's off the board. Okay, we don't get to talk about him, with Quinn Williams. Okay, Tetairoa McMillan is off the board. We don't get to talk about him with Garrett Wilson, but Tyler Warren's still here. And Tyler Warren could make a ton of sense for this team, right? I think that this is somebody who they really need a tight end addition. I think that could be a massive get for them there. Do they need another cornerback, a Jahdae Barron? Somebody like Will Johnson. I think the cornerback position, I think you can make a big splash there. Those are a couple of options. But the most satisfying pick here is Armand Membou, the offensive tackle from Missouri. This is my Snickers satisfying selection for the New York Jets. And the reason why is because it is so perfect for what they need. They only have really one question mark along the offensive line, and it's at right tackle. They've got Olu Fashanu playing left tackle, and he played well. He has played well when he has been healthy. They have Jonah Jackson. They've got Joe Tittman. Sorry, not Jonah Jackson. They have John Simpson. They have Joe Tittman, and they've got Elijah Vera Tucker at the other guard spot. That leaves one spot open for a star to be in there, and I think that could be Armand Membou, one of the most athletic offensive tackles that we saw at the Combine, somebody who really popped athletically. He has had a fantastic year this past season, an elite pass blocking grade from us, one of the best pass blockers, and a really good run blocker as well in this class. I think that overall athleticism, you have two offensive tackles now in Olu Fashanu and Armand Membou, who are not only playing their natural positions, but also bring an adequate level of athleticism to block defenders at the NFL level one-on-one. And I think that is incredibly important. And that is why Armand Membou is my Snickers satisfying selection here for the New York Jets. I just think that it's the home position. He gets to stay at that same position. You don't have to flip him to the other side of the offensive line. This one is perfect. And I think the Jets would be incredibly satisfied as well if a player like this was able to make it to them at number 7 overall. So Armand Membou, my satisfying selection, brought to you by Snickers Ice Cream there. Let's get to number 8, the Carolina Panthers. They need defense, right? Dave Canales sort of gave that away. Shout out to Kay Adams for that on the Up Adams show. Was asking Dave Canales about that a little bit, and she did a good job. She was poking me. He gave a coach speak answer to, hey, who are you drafting at number 8? He's like, well, we just want a guy who is a Carolina Panther through and through. Somebody that we love the coach. Somebody's going to fit in the locker room. Kay was like, no, come on. Let's get some real answers here. What are you doing? And he kind of, you could tell he was flustered a little bit to answer the question again, and he basically gave us a hint, and he said, we got to fix the defense first. I think that they're going to go interior defensive line or edge rusher. And in this, what I think will happen mock draft, I'm going to go with Shamar Stewart. I have my reservations about Shamar Stewart, given the fact that he only had a sack and a half in each of the last 3 seasons. He has not been a super productive player, but he was a really good run defender this past year because of that size, 6'5", 285 pounds, somebody who just brings a lot of strength, a lot of length, and he's just a big body along that defensive line. You could play him in anywhere from a 3 technique all the way to a wide 7. He could do a lot of different things for you. Is he ever going to be a prolific pass rusher? I'm not so sure about that, but I know the NFL loves this dude. The fact of the matter is, anybody who has been built like Shamar Stewart in the past has basically gone number 1 overall. Mario Williams, Jadeveon Clowney, who's on the Panthers, which would be funny to pair those guys together. And then Myles Garrett's the other one. Those are really the only 3 defensive linemen that we have seen who tested the way that Shamar Stewart did and have that same similar size. But the reason why those guys all went number 1 overall is because they had a lot more production than Shamar Stewart. So production is a little bit of an issue here, but I do think the Carolina Panthers are in on this guy from everything that I've heard about that situation. The New Orleans Saints on the board next. New Orleans could go a lot of different directions, right? I think they could go offensive line if they wanted to, depending on what they think of Trevor Penning. You start thinking about, okay, is it Josh Simmons on the board here? Is it Will Campbell on the board here? Maybe a Kelvin Banks Jr., corner, definitely a need for them. I'm certainly considering that. Interior defensive line. Does Walter Nolan get picked in this spot? Are they thinking about a Derek Harmon? Guys like that? Maybe Kenneth Grant? If Tetairoa McMillan was here, I'd think about that as well, just given the uncertainty of what Chris Olave is with his concussions and Rashid Shaheed coming off of his knee injury. Ultimately, I'm going to go with Will Johnson. They really only have one solidified corner on the outside right now because Alontae Taylor plays a little bit in and out. I think they're going to play him in the nickel this upcoming season. You lose Paulson Adebo. You trade away Marshawn Lattimore. You do that because you have Kool-Aid McKinstry, who you drafted last year. But Will Johnson on one side, Kool-Aid McKinstry on the other. These are two of the best corners in college football over the last 2 years. And so to get these players in the same secondary, I think gives you a lot of versatility to be able to play man or zone coverage. I think McKinstry's better when he is in press man coverage. But as you can see on the screen, Will Johnson can do this as well. You see him right there in that national championship game against Quentin Johnston, basically locking him up off the line of scrimmage. And he was much better as a man coverage defender last season. But you even see right there when he is in off zone coverage, he reads things so well. He's got a handful of pick sixes throughout his career because he is so smart and he's got that versatility to him. So Will Johnson, I think, makes a ton of sense for the New Orleans Saints. And I think that he is a great pairing with Kool-Aid McKinstry. So I'm going to go Will Johnson there to really fortify that secondary because I do think they need it. They could go a couple of different directions, but to me, pairing those two cornerbacks, I think makes a ton of sense. Let's go to the Chicago Bears next. Remember that conversation that I was having before about the Las Vegas Raiders? Are they ready for an Ashton Jeanty? Maybe when it comes to Las Vegas. Ain't no maybe about it when it comes to the Chicago Bears. They are absolutely ready for an Ashton Jeanty. And if you put him in this offense, oh my goodness, Caleb Williams, Ashton Jeanty, all those receivers, the new and improved offensive line, and you got Ben Johnson calling the plays. I know Chicago fans have been, people outside of Chicago go, oh, look at the Bears. They won the offseason again, and then nothing happened in the regular season. I'd be a believer. I'd be ready for it. I'd be in on it. I think they're making the playoffs, especially if they get a offensive weapon like this to complement and really complete everything that they are doing on the offensive side of the ball. Ashton Jeanty is so good. Just one of the highest PFF rushing grades that we have given for a player in a single season. Honestly, it's not just this season. He had an elite PFF rushing grade the year before as well. He also had an elite receiving grade, which I think people forget about because he wasn't used as much as a receiver this past season. But this dude's an absolute stud. And when you talk about East Chicago ready, they got Braxton Jones on the left side. They've got Jonah Jackson. They signed Drew Dahlman. They traded for Joe Thuney. And then they have Darnell Wright as well. That is a 5 up front that you feel good blocking for a player like Jeanty. So I think he just totally takes this Bears offense to the next level. And what an offseason it would be to get him. I'll throw in certainly the offensive line, the interior offensive lineman as well. And then, of course, Ben Johnson being able to orchestrate all of that. When we get to number 11, it's the San Francisco 49ers. And I think this team really needs offensive line. They've got Colton McKivitz on the right side. They have Trent Williams on the left. Williams, for as elite as he has been for so many years now, he ain't getting any younger. And you got to be able to get a player in there who I think can potentially start at right tackle for you, but also be somebody who could take over whenever Trent Williams is done. I think that someone can be Will Campbell. And Will Campbell can even start at offensive guard for you. If you want to keep McKivitz at one of those spots, and then you could have Will Campbell on one side, you could have Dominic Pooney on the other because they lost Aaron Banks in free agency. And so you're setting up a really nice interior offensive line. Will Campbell showed us at the combine. He has the athleticism to be able to run Kyle Shanahan's zone blocking scheme. He can get out on the hoof. He can play in those mid and outside zone running concepts, and he could do it very well. I also think he's one of the smartest offensive linemen that we have in this year's draft. And I think that Shanahan and John Lynch, or if they've had the chance to sit down with him, which I'm not sure if he's done a top 30 visit with him or they met him at the combine, but if they have, I feel like they're going to absolutely love what they hear from him. So he's somebody who every single time I hear him talk about the game of football, I'm incredibly impressed. And the arm length, was an issue at the combine, under 33-inch arms, which is normally kind of the threshold that you need. And then he shows up at pro day and he does have 33-inch arms. And now everybody's up in arms about the measurements that we had at the combine. What can you trust these days? I don't know. I can trust the tape, though. I can trust the tape of Will Campbell and know that it's that of a damn good football player. So I think that he would be a great 49er there at number 11. Number 12, let's go to the Dallas Cowboys here. No Ashton Jeanty on the board to sort of tempt them with a running back selection. This is one that I have made before. And then when free agency came and they made a couple additions to the linebacker level, I kind of cooled on it. But the more I thought of it, I still like Jihad Campbell from Alabama here for the Dallas Cowboys because I think he can do a lot of different things for you. I think that Campbell can play as an on-ball outside linebacker, as a pass rusher. I think he can play off-ball. I think he'll play more off-ball than he will on the edge. You look at Micah Parsons, and he was playing as more of an off-ball linebacker in college, and then he ended up playing more edge rusher at the NFL level. I think that Campbell is going to stick as an off-ball linebacker, and with that, I think he can be one of the best that they have on the team, despite the additions that they made, because before it was pretty barren of who they had on this team. But now you look at the linebacker level, they brought in Kenneth Murray, they brought in Jack Sanborn, who I think Sanborn's a solid player. They're waiting for DeMarvion Overshown to get back from his knee injury. And they've got Maris Liufau, who they drafted in the mid rounds last year. And so it's a decent linebacker group. They still need a star. And I think Jihad Campbell can be a star for them at the second level of their defense. We go to the Miami Dolphins next. This one might be a little bit shocking because of the position label that he plays. I'm going to go with Jahdae Barron from Texas. This is now, as I'm looking at the board and the guys who are available here, this one is the one that makes the most sense to me. And people might go, whoa, hold on. They don't need outside corner. What are you doing? Jahdae Barron is somebody who could play a lot for them. They lose Javon Holland in free agency. Don't really replace him with a star at safety. You can play Jahdae Barron at safety because he has played it before. He has started at that position before, even at Texas. You can also play him in the slot. And I know they have Kader Kohu, but he's undrafted free agent. He can be a long-term option for them. He had a great rookie season, wasn't as good last year. I just think that Barron gives them so much position versatility when it comes to filling that safety need and being able to play in the slot. He just gives them such a diverse setup of however they want to play in their nickel base. And they do that a lot. They want to get as many defensive backs on the field as they possibly can. And Barron feels like that chess piece to be able to do it. I picked him over a guy like Malachi Starks, who could also be in this conversation here, certainly. I like both of those players more than I like Nicky Manwari. You could potentially go interior defensive line. You could certainly go offensive line as well. A Kelvin Banks Jr. makes sense for them. Maybe even a Kenneth Grant could make sense for them as well. But I'm really high on Barron. He's a top 10 player for me right now. Again, you guys can see that and the rankings over at PFF.com. You can see the big board. You can see that on the mock draft simulator as you guys are going and making your own mocks too. So I'm going with Barron here. I haven't seen this connection before, but I actually like it the more that I think about it here. That sets up an extremely easy selection for the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, we don't even have to spend too much time on this one. This one's Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. This is a sprint to the podium type of situation here for the Indianapolis Colts. One of their biggest needs that they have on their team is at that tight end spot. I think they could probably use another upgrade at corner, but they've got Juju Brents coming back. Jalen Jones played well at times last year. So, with the Cam Bynum signing and the Charvarius Ward signing, they don't feel as desperate to maybe go defensive back here in the first round. They could potentially go offensive line, depending on how confident they are in Tanner Bortolini and Matt Goncalves to be able to step in for Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, who have gone elsewhere now since free agency. I think that Tyler Warren, though, there's no other way to say it. What he did this past year when he was at Penn State, he was their entire offense. And I don't think he'll need to be the entire offense for the Indianapolis Colts, but he certainly is an area where they can lean on that position much more than they were able to last season. So whether it is Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones who ends up starting at quarterback, you know that they're going to love a player like Tyler Warren to be able to throw the ball to. And of course, he can act as an extra blocker as well, bringing a big frame to the position. Honestly, I don't even know if he makes it to 14 at this point. He could go to number 7 overall for the Jets. We talked about that there. There are a couple of other teams that he might be able to go. I think Chicago is well in play to draft Tyler Warren. But here he makes it to 14, and if he does, he won't make it any further down. The Atlanta Falcons are up next at number 15, and we have a handful of edge rushers on the board who I think could make sense for this team. But it's not just hey, we're picking against my board and where I have guys available. It's also what I think would happen here. I think Raheem Morris is going to love Jalen Walker. I really do. I'm a little bit lower on him just because I think he's more of a tweener than people are willing to admit. Love his background, love how he talks about the game, how he approaches the game. His father was a defensive coordinator throughout college football, so he just grew up around the game, and you can absolutely tell the way that he answers questions and the way that he talks about how he plays the game of football. He talks about his versatility as a edge rusher as well as an off-ball linebacker. He still wants to be that chess piece, and to be honest with you, I think the Falcons would allow him to do it. I think he is immediately the most athletic, most productive, and best linebacker that they have at the second level, and he can also give them some juice off the edge, as you were seeing right there on the tape, was giving Kelvin Banks a little bit of fits there to be able to get back to the quarterback. Even though he doesn't have a lot of pass rush moves down yet. He is somebody who I think could develop them if you play him on the edge a little bit more. But I honestly think that they would use him as a second level defender. And I think that Raheem Morris would use Jalen Walker to be that coach on the field type of a player. So not a pure edge rusher here, but one that I still think the Falcons need. I know they need cornerback. I know that that is a possibility for them. But Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron, they're already off the board. I'm not going to reach for another cornerback here at number 15. It's a predictive mock. I think Jalen Walker could absolutely go right here. The Arizona Cardinals at number 16. I like going corner for them here as well. Same thing, though. Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron, these guys are off the board. It could have possibly been defensive line. I guess it still could be defensive line, but they bring back Calais Campbell. They brought in Dalvin Tomlinson. They signed Josh Sweat as well. They brought back Baron Browning. So when I think about this team, I instead now look to the offensive side of the ball, and I look to the interior offensive line. They have Jonah Williams playing at right tackle. Then they have Paris Johnson Jr. playing at left tackle. This is the last year that Jonah Williams is on his deal at the right tackle spot. I'm going to draft Kelvin Banks for them. This is a ton of flexibility here. You could play him at a guard spot, which I think they need help with immediately, and then you can allow Kelvin Banks Jr. to be your long-term option opposite Paris Johnson Jr. And you don't have to re-sign Jonah Williams if you're disappointed with how he's played. So I actually love the versatility here. The board didn't exactly break in a great way for Arizona, but if the corners go early, then I think that there's going to be a world where they're going to have the opportunity to take a guy on the interior that they absolutely love. Maybe it's a Gray Zabel as well, whose name we'll probably talk about here in a little bit, because there's a couple of teams that I like getting him off the board at in a second. But with Kelvin Banks being here, he's got that tackle flexibility to him. So you kick him inside his first year, and then you let him play on the outside moving forward. So there it is. There's the first 16, the first half of this first round mock draft, which brings us to number 17. And number 17 is the Cincinnati Bengals. They also need interior offensive line help. They need interior defensive line help as well. Could go with a Walter Nolan, a Kenneth Grant. Both of those guys are still on the board here. Could potentially go with a Mike Green, Donovan Ezraku. Both those guys are on the board as well. I am going to go to offensive line, though, because with the investment that you made, not just in Joe Burrow and how you always want to keep him upright, but also the wide receivers, you need to be able to pass block, to allow these guys to get open more often. Not that they can't win off the line of scrimmage. I absolutely think that they can. But I'm going to go with Donovan Jackson here, the guard from Ohio State. It's a little rich for where I have him on my big board. But I don't think that's the case with the NFL. I think that when you look at what Donovan Jackson has been over the last couple of years, it was a little disappointing 2-3 years ago. But this past year, he was playing left guard, but then he was asked to play left tackle when Josh Simmons went down with that knee injury. And he actually played pretty dang well, kind of like how Joe Thuney played for the Kansas City Chiefs this year. So, is he built like a left tackle? Is he going to play left tackle long term? No, I don't think so. But, he gives you that versatility. Whether it's Joe Thuney or maybe Elijah Vera Tucker is a little bit better of an example, somebody who's a full-time, you prefer him at guard, but if you're in a pinch and you need him to play offensive tackle, you can absolutely do that. So I also think that the Bengals, they gravitate towards those big school guys. Ohio State, not too far up the road from where Cincinnati is. I think they have a great finger on the pulse of what Donovan Jackson has become as a prospect. And so they need starters on the interior offensive line. Make no mistake about it. And I think that if Donovan Jackson is there, they'll go for it. I'll stick with the interior offensive line train here for the Seattle Seahawks, who also have a major need at left guard, right guard, center. They could pick two different starting caliber players here, and with having not only the 50th, but also the 52nd overall selection in the second round because of the DK Metcalf trade, they're going to have the flexibility to pick two new starters on the interior offensive line if they want to. I'm going to get them one here with Gray Zabel, and I'm going to pick Zabel first, and I like the idea of him being in the selection here at number 18 because he's sort of that chess piece to get you that quote-unquote best five out there. If you end up drafting, say, Jonah Savanaya from Arizona in the second round, he's going to play guard for you. So then Zabel can play center. If you draft Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia, he's going to play center for you, and then Zabel can play guard. So getting him here at number 18, you have got a surefire, in my opinion, starter on the interior offensive line, which also gives you flexibility to navigate picks 50 and 52 however you want, especially if you want to double dip there. So I'm going Gray Zabel, the guy who played tackle at North Dakota State, but he's going to move inside, and we saw him dominate at both guard and center at the Senior Bowl this year. Number 19, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the board. I think the corner is certainly within the conversation for them, but with no Will Johnson, no Jahdae Barron, obviously no Travis Hunter, I don't think that there's a guy. I don't think, Savona Ravel, I don't think is going to be an option here for them. I think it's a little early for Trey Amos as much as I like him, the corner from Ole Miss. Instead, I'm looking at pass rusher, and they got some good ones on the board, but the one who fits, in my opinion, is Donovan Ezeraku. I think he's exactly what this team wants from the edge rush spot. They want production, they want experience, and they want a guy who just knows how to win, because I think they've taken a couple of flyer players over the last couple of years. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Logan Hall, Yaya Diaby even. These are all players that I think they drafted and said, hey, we need them to polish up as pass rushers, but we're willing to take that chance. Diaby has a little bit, but Tryon-Shoyinka never did. He's no longer on the team. Logan Hall's still there, but he's not the pass rusher that they hope that he could develop to be. They don't have to worry about that about Donovan Ezeraku. I listened to his podium session at the Combine, and man, you talk about a player who understands the why at the position. I mean, this guy absolutely does. He knows why he is executing certain pass rush moves. He has a pass rush plan before every single snap, and he plays that stand-up outside linebacker edge rush position that fits perfectly in a Todd Bowles odd front 3-4 defensive front. So to me, he's exactly the type of guy that they would want in so many different areas. So he should be high up on the list if you're doing a team-centric big board, which, by the way, shameless plug, we're going to be putting out over at pff.com. No matter what team you are a fan of, we're going to have a team-specific top 100. So we'll take my big board and we'll be moving players up and down and around depending on, what teams run when it comes to cornerback scheme. Are they zone? Are they man? Are they press? Are they off? Do they play single high? Do they play two high? What is their front like? Are they a 3-4 front? What do they do in the passing game? Are they a heavy personnel team? Do they run a lot of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends? Are they more of an 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers? That they like to have a fullback on the field? All this kinds of stuff. We're taking all that data and scheme information and we're using it to build those team top 100. So make sure that you guys are looking out for that as well. As we get to number 20, we now have the Denver Broncos on the board. They certainly could go Omarion Hampton, the running back from North Carolina. He is on the board here. I'm also becoming more of a fan of them getting ahead of a potential interior defensive line exodus that could happen next offseason. Zach Allen's a free agent. Malcolm Roach is a free agent. John Franklin Meyer is a free agent all along that interior defensive line. They can't bring back all those guys. I think they'll prioritize Allen. But you can get ahead of it by drafting a Kenneth Grant, a Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon. I think a lot of those guys are on the board for them. But I still think they want to upgrade on offense. Even with the signing of Evan Ingram, I'm not going to have them take Colson Loveland here because I think Ingram can be that tight end presence that they want. But they need a wide receiver too. I think they got Courtland Sutton. They got a lot of nice wide receiver threes. Matthew Golden from Texas, I think would be a really good wide receiver too for this team. Now they could go Luther Burden as well if they want a little bit more of a, hey, let's get the ball in this guy's hands very quickly. Watch what he can do after the catch. They can have that. But Golden, to me, is more of that route runner who can attack that second level of the field. You talk about 3-level winners at the wide receiver position. The first level, it's winning as a yards after catch guy when it comes to screens, slants, dig routes right over the middle, or drag routes right over the middle, mesh concept stuff. That's first level winning at the wide receiver position. And then third level winning is, skinny posts, go balls, 9 balls, a regular post, whatever you want to call it there. But then you have that second level, and these are your comeback routes, your deep overs, your in routes, like things like that are anywhere from 10 to 20 yards down the field. I think Matthew Golden can win at that area where the Broncos don't really have that player right now. So this is a combination of thinking about that part of it for the Denver Broncos, but also thinking about what the league thinks of Matthew Golden. And I think that he is somebody who's going to get picked in the first round. So this is a spot that I do think could make sense for him, even though I don't see it a lot. The Pittsburgh Steelers at number 21. Look, I got to do it. Until they sign Aaron Rodgers, 21 basically has to be a quarterback. They're not going to roll in the next year with Mason Rudolph. They're just not going to do it. And so I'm going to have them taking Jackson Dart here because that is the guy. Again, it's rich for my big board, but I have heard more love for him as potentially a first round pick. Ultimately, I would tell you that I don't think it happens because I haven't heard anything concrete on the matter right now. But it does feel like that he has some fans around the NFL, and perhaps Pittsburgh is one of those teams where they would draft him and just try to develop him, right? And just try to allow him to be that long-term quarterback. At least he has the arm talent and he is the natural mover that you would want. He's got that former baseball background, so he's got that multi-sport background to him. He just needs to be more consistent when it comes to 2-minute drills, late game situations. He's a big time throw monster, and we saw that over the last couple of years with him and Lane Kiffin's system. But making the right decisions of when to have those big time throws and not put the ball in harm's way, that's something that's going to be a little bit of a work in progress for him. Not sure that's a guarantee that always gets better. Some people act like it is. I'm a little bit more wary of it. But again, until the Steelers sign Aaron Rodgers or have something else at the quarterback position, I feel like I'm going to give them a quarterback there at number 21 overall. I think, again, interior defensive line could be a pick here for them, maybe corner as well. They fixed wide receiver by trading for DK Metcalf, but I guess maybe Omari and Hampton. Ultimately, I think that we got to pick Jackson Dart and get him off the board here. Kenneth Grant is my next pick here for the Los Angeles Chargers, and it's perfect. It's a Michigan connection. He is one half of what Jim Harbaugh called a gift from the football gods when he was still coaching at Michigan. So he recruited Kenneth Grant. He helped develop him in his early years. And most importantly, the Chargers need him. They lost Poona Ford in free agency, and they really weren't able to replace him with that similar caliber of a run stuffer in the middle, and that's exactly what Kenneth Grant is. I think he improves the floor of their defensive line immediately, and he is somebody who could really hold the line of scrimmage. He's got great size to be able to do it, but he also gives you a little bit of plus work in the finesse game as a pass rusher. You just saw that rep there, a little spin move after the first move didn't work as a bull rusher. You see him execute a little push-pull with an arm rover. He's got that quick dancer's feet for a guy who weighs 335, 340. So to me, it's one of the easy Michigan connections with Jim Harbaugh, but this one actually does make a ton of sense. If he makes it to them at 22, even with Colson Loveland on the board, I have a difficult time thinking that they are not going to select him. Packers up at number 23 now. Could go edge rusher. Could certainly go edge rusher. There's a handful of guys on the board that could make sense for them. Mike Green, James Pierce Jr. These guys are still here. I think they got to go corner, though, guys. I really do. We don't know what's going to happen with Jair Alexander. Doesn't feel like he's there for the long haul. Lost to Eric Stokes. I mean, they really don't have a lot of answers at the cornerback position right now. I'm gonna go with Savon Revel. I think this is somebody who, if he didn't get hurt, if he didn't have this ACL injury, we might be talking about him getting drafted even higher than this, maybe even in the top 15, because this dude has the size, the arm length, the strength, and most importantly, some freakish NFL even level athleticism to play this position. I think that he is still honing in on the anticipations of how to play and play a little bit more under control. But my goodness, there are times when wide receivers who are a little bit more technically sound, have a little bit more of an advanced release package, might be able to get off of the line of scrimmage against him clean, even if he's in press coverage. But then he immediately catches up to them so quickly, so explosively, that he almost like overruns their route if they're running a vertical route. That happened all the time. He's also got great ball skills as well. So as long as the knee checks out, he could legitimately be CB1 for Green Bay. And he passes those thresholds that Brian Gutekunst, their general manager, has sort of held their prospects to over the last handful of years, whether it's been wide receiver or edge rushers or corners. They just don't draft those small guys. They like to have that length and athleticism and explosiveness thresholds. Savon Revel is somebody who really checks all those boxes there for the Packers. The Minnesota Vikings on the board now at number 24. I'll be honest, I don't think they're picking here at 24. We didn't do trades here in this mock draft. Maybe we can in future mock drafts when we get a little bit closer to draft day. They pick at 24 and they don't pick again until 97. And they have 4 total picks in this draft. They're trading back. This is a team that is a prime candidate to trade back in this draft. But because we're not doing any trades, I love what they did on the offensive and defensive line in free agency, bringing in guys like Javon Hargrave and John Allen on the defensive line, bringing in Will Fries, bringing in Ryan Kelly on the offensive line. So both the offensive and defensive line are really short up there. You got Harrison Smith, coming back for another season at the safety spot. They got Josh Metellus as well, but Malachi Starks is the safety of the future. If you get Malachi Starks to be able to play in that secondary, especially after losing Cam Bynum, you have an opportunity now to be able to pass the torch to a guy who has been unbelievable over the last decade in Harrison Smith. And for Malachi Starks to be able to learn from a player like that, I think he'd be invaluable, and he could be a massive difference maker there. I think he'd play in two high safety shells. I think he'd play him in single high. He could play in the slot. Hell, he can even play some reps for you as an outside cornerback. I think he's a willing tackler. I think he's got great ball skills. Yeah, this past year wasn't his best, but this is somebody, in my opinion, who is an immediate starter for this team, even with who they already have out there. He would get in the rotation in the mix, and they would really use him in that secondary. So to me, this is almost just a value pick. I know they could go a couple of different directions here, but Starks, to me, lasting until 24, I think is a good fit for what the Vikings want to do if they're not trading down. The Houston Texans, you trade away Kenyon Green. That one I don't mind because Kenyon Green was sort of a failed experiment there for them. But then you trade Larry Tunsil. I mean, the offensive line was bad enough for the Houston Texans last year, and that was with Tunsil on the team. Now you move on from Tunsil. You're basically picking an offensive lineman here at number 25. I mean, the rest of the team is pretty stout. I mean, it could go interior defensive line. They don't really need it. They don't need edge rushers. They got the linebackers. Their secondary is sick, certainly when it's fully healthy. I mean, they have an incredible secondary. They could go wide receiver. Certainly with losing Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, you don't know exactly what his health is there. I think that could make sense for them. Nothing makes as much sense as interior offensive line does. I knew there was somebody I forgot. They traded for Christian Kirk, so they got Christian Kirk as well. So this was a no-brainer then, a full no-brainer that it's got to be something along the offensive line. They bring in Cam Robinson to at least be a stopgap player who it allows them to take best player available, and however it falls to number 25. Just take Josh Simmons, man. He was one of the best offensive tackles, if not the best offensive tackle in college football last season before he got hurt. Now, he's coming off of a knee injury, and so you have some concern there. But, with Cam Robinson being there, I think you feel good about, okay, let's draft Josh Simmons. And if he's not good to go right away, which feels like he might be, given the way that he has talked over this offseason, you just feel good about him as a offensive tackle piece for the future there. So I like Josh Simmons for the Texans because they basically, in my opinion, have to take offensive line. 26, the Los Angeles Rams. Sometimes I like Malachi Starks here for them. Yeah, if Jalen Walker makes here, I think that this makes a lot of sense for them. I'm actually going to go Colson Loveland. With Loveland still on the board, this makes a ton of sense to me because not only could they use a little bit of an upgrade at tight end, you're moving on from Cooper Kupp. You brought in Devontae Adams. I get it, but Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, and Colson Loveland, my goodness, what an incredible trio of receiving threats that you could have on any given play for Matthew Stafford. I actually like that one a lot there for them. And I don't know how many times I've mocked this one to them. They could go corner, but again, I think the good corners or the no-brainer corners are off the board now at this point. You could go with Trey Amos, and maybe they'll be interested in him. I think that he's good enough to be considered here. I don't know if the NFL fully agrees, but Colson Loveland, to me, just sets up so many mismatch opportunities, and he plays a position that Sean McVay really knows how to get the most of. Back in his days when he was doing 11 personnel stuff, but from condensed sets, you can do a lot of that stuff with Colson Loveland as well. So you got to really feel good about the receivers that you have in the room if Loveland's in there for the Los Angeles Rams. The Baltimore Ravens are next at number 27. To me, this is sort of an easy one. The NFL, I think, likes Tyler Booker more than I do. This is one of the spots where I go, okay, I could see it in the first round. I could see where this one makes sense. Now, they could also go edge rusher here. And again, I've said that a couple of times, and we've got some edge rushers falling a little bit, but I'm not so sure the NFL is as hot on Mike Green and James Pierce Jr. It feels like they're falling down draft boards. It feels like they could be drafted lower than where their tape may suggest because of off-the-field concerns. You've got Tyler Booker here, and I think this one makes a lot of sense because it's a plug and play, right? You're losing Patrick McCarry, you're losing that beef. You want to stay strong up between the tackles, and even though I don't want Tyler Booker in any situation where he's on the hoof or certainly that he is zone blocking, you put this guy in a phone booth and he'll beat you up. I mean, he will duo block you into infinity, especially with Tyler Linderbaum standing next to him and the offensive tackles that they have there as well. Ronnie Stanley would be next to him, I think, at that left guard spot. So to me, this is exactly what the Baltimore Ravens are looking to do to replace that offensive guard spot. Now, is it in the first round? Maybe it's not, but to me, I do feel like the NFL loves Tyler Booker, likes him a lot more than I do. Even though there's a little bit of a lack of versatility there, I think that he would make sense for the Ravens here at number 27. At number 28, man, the possibilities feel endless for the Detroit Lions. Again, edge rushers are there. Could beef up the interior defensive line a little bit. Maybe linebacker, although, again, if Jalen Walker makes it to you, I think that makes sense. Man, I don't think you go safety. I think you feel good about your safety room. Honestly, I'd go best player available at this point. Best player available is Luther Burden. Can you imagine this offense? Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got Sam Laporta, you got David Montgomery, you got Jahmyr Gibbs. And these are Luther Burden in the mix? That's not even fair. I know they brought back Tim Patrick as well. And Tim Patrick, I think, is solid. Dude, this is another player who, look, he was one of the highest recruits in the country 3 years ago for a reason. Excellent 2023 season. And look, 2024 was not as productive for him, but I think that was a product of what was going on around him on offense. And I think that some people look at the 2024 tape and they go, okay, well, it's a lot of gimmicky routes. It's a lot of short stuff. It's a lot of in motion. I think they were doing that because they had to, not because Luther Burden can't become a great route runner. You see his stop and start, change of direction stuff. This is an elite, a potentially elite football player, an offensive weapon here. So we know that the Detroit Lions, they're not afraid to zig when other people would think that they would zag. And to get a wide receiver and an overall talent like this, just to make sure they stay as unstoppable as possible without Ben Johnson no longer there as their play caller, I kind of like this one. It's just a best player available approach. The Washington Commanders now up at number 29. This is where I will have the edge rush slide fall or stop, for Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall. I think he's got top 20 tape. It's just off the field concerns. Where is he going to get drafted? I don't know. Is he going to be a first round pick? Is he going to be a second round pick? Is he going to be a day 3 pick? I do not know. The tape tells you he is a top 20 football player. He knows how to rush the passer. Elite PFF pass rush grade this past season. Really high pass rush win percentage, including against Ohio State, in which that was one of the games where I thought that he played the best, and he didn't get a lot of work against some NFL level competition, but when he faced them in Ohio State, he played very, very well. So to me, you look at what Washington did, and yeah, they need to get better in run defense, but they also just need to have better pass rushers on the team. So if they want to go that angle, Mike Green is a good one. You see all those tackles for loss, you see the sacks, you see the forced fumbles, and if we had the PFF stats for pass rush win percentage, that would be mighty high as well. You guys can see that over at pff.com. Also in the PFF draft guide. I'll shout that out too. The draft guide is out right now, and you can get that if you have a PFF Plus subscription. That brings us to the Buffalo Bills at number 30. It's a perfect scenario. Look, I know Kenneth Grant's not still on the board for them, but they need interior defensive line. That is one of the few roster holes that they have. They're great on the offensive line. They're good at running back. They're good at wide receiver. They're good. They've got depth at tight end. Obviously, they have Josh Allen. They certainly could use a corner. I think a corner could be in consideration here for Buffalo, but you feel good about the depth you have at safety. As long as Matt Milano is there, you feel good about what you have at linebacker. Interior defensive line, let's go Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. Again, a former top 3 overall recruit just because he is an athletic freak at his size. 6'3", around 300 pounds. This dude was an absolute boulder in the middle of the field for Ole Miss this year. Elite run defense grade. And then when he pinned his ears back to try to get after the passer, he gave you a little bit more than what we had seen over the last 2 years, which was key. Is he ever going to be an elite pass rusher? Maybe not, but man, this guy will be a great run defender for you. And the thing that I love the most about Walter Nolan, the motor, the effort is running 100% hot at all times. As not a guarantee for interior defensive linemen. You know Sean McDermott's absolutely going to love that in the middle of Buffalo's defense. So I think Kenneth Grant's probably their preferred interior defensive lineman, but you don't have to do too much convincing to tell them that Walter Nolan would also be a great selection for you. So I think Walter Nolan's a really good pick here for the Buffalo Bills. That brings the Kansas City Chiefs up at number 31. I understand that they made a couple of signings along the offensive line. Given the board and where we're at here, they could go edge rusher. Like Michael Williams is still here. They could go Michael Williams. They could go James Pierce Jr., depending on what they want there. Landon Jackson from Arkansas. These guys are still on the board. Ultimately, I'd continue to take swings at offensive line until I know exactly what I've got here. It looks like they're moving Kingsley Suamataia, their second-round pick last year, inside to guard because he wasn't able to make it at offensive tackle. Take Josh Connerly Jr., the offensive tackle from Oregon, somebody who I was a little bit lower on going into the year because I didn't feel like he played with enough power. Thought he played with plenty of finesse, but you got to be able to handle power if you're going to play at the NFL level. He was a lot better at that this year. I think he still has a way to go. He needs to continue to get a little bit stronger, but I at least saw a baseline of a player who I thought could develop into a starting caliber pro because he's got those movement skills. This is somebody who played running back in high school, and now he's playing offensive tackle at the D1 level, and we're talking about him as a first-round offensive tackle type of a player. It's just that combination of strength and athleticism. The athleticism's there. The strength needs to continue to be there. But he is at least somebody who has the movement skills to be relied upon in one-on-one situations. And so you hope the development continues for him. But in my opinion, that is the avenue that I would love to see the Kansas City Chiefs go. That leaves the Philadelphia Eagles here up at number 32. And it feels like no matter what mock draft I do, when we get here, it's just, yeah, how did Howie do it again? He got another prospect that fell all the way to 32. And we got a handful of players that are still on the board that are really good football players, right? I mean, I've said it a couple of times now. James Pierce Jr. is here. You've got Michael Williams. You got Derek Harmon. You got Nick Scorton, Darius Alexander, Tyleek Williams, Xavier Watts, although I don't think they're going to go safety. I think they're comfortable with Sidney Brown there replacing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Ultimately, let's stick with the Howie playbook, right? Let's stay along the defensive line. You lose Milton Williams. You lose Josh Sweat as well. Let's go interior defensive line because I think that is where they are weaker. They have Nolan Smith. In theory, they have Bryce Huff, who didn't do a lot last year, but he is still there for them. I think they have Josh Uche. Don't they have Josh Uche as well? Is this where Josh Uche went? Did Philadelphia really do this? They did. Of course they did. Of course they did, because it's Howie, and he did it again. I'm gonna go with Derek Harmon, the interior defensive lineman from Oregon. A really good year this year. Again, somebody who I didn't love him last year when he was at Michigan State. He was more of just a run stuffer, lost a lot of weight this past season to get a lot faster. And when I watched him at the beginning of the year, I was like, okay, now you got the speed, but I don't trust you as much as a run defender and an anchor in the middle. As the year went on, he continued to round out his game. And so now he's a really nice one-on-one pass rush winner, but he also gives you some good reps and good strength in the interior as well. Now, I love him the most for Philadelphia because you already have Jalen Carter, you already have Jordan Davis, you have Moro Ojomo there as well, and that is a really nice four-man rotation if you throw Derek Harmon in there. I think that immediately becomes a deep group once again, despite losing Milton Williams in free agency. And so there we go. I'm going to have Derek Harmon go into the Philadelphia Eagles to round out this mock. There it is. 32 picks up. 32 picks down. Let's do a little recap for anybody that might have been tuning into the show after it started or at least halfway through. So this is, once again, this is a what I think will happen mock draft, 3 weeks to draft day. Had Cam Ward going number 1 to the Titans, Shadur Sanders going to the Browns at number 2, Travis Hunter to the Giants at 3, Abdul Carter to the Patriots at 4, Mason Graham to the Jags at 5, Tetro McMillan to the Raiders at 6. Armand Membou was our Snickers satisfying selection there, plugging in at right tackle and solidifying that offensive line there in New York to the Jets at number 7. Shamar Stewart at number 8 to the Panthers, Will Johnson to the Saints at number 9, Ashton Jeanty to the Bears at 10, Will Campbell to the Niners at 11, Jahad Campbell to the Cowboys at 12, Jahdae Barron to the Dolphins at 13, Tyler Warren to the Colts at 14, Jalen Walker to the Falcons at 15, Kelvin Banks Jr. to the Cardinals at number 16, and then starting at number 17, the second half of the mock draft here, we had Donovan Jackson go number 17 to the Bengals, Gray Zabel to the Seahawks at 18, Donovan Izaraku to the Bucs at 19, Matthew Golden to the Broncos at 20, Jackson Dart to the Steelers at 21, Kenneth Grant to the Chargers at 22, Savone Revel to the Packers at 23, Malachi Starks to the Vikings at 24, even though I think they're going to trade back. The Texans got Josh Simmons at number 25 to help shore up the offensive line. Colson Lovin went to the Rams at 26, Tyler Booker to the Ravens at 27, Luther Burden to the Lions at 28. Man, I'm already excited to play Madden with that team for next year if those 3 wide receivers end up getting together in Detroit. Mike Green going to the Commanders at 29, Walter Nolan to the Bills at 30, Josh Connerly Jr. to the Chiefs at 31, and then Derek Harmon to the Philadelphia Eagles at number 32. As I said at the very top of the show, if you guys want to run a mock draft for yourself, head on over to pff.com/mock. I was using the PFF mock draft simulator to run through this mock draft here. You could do as many mock drafts as you want, not just 1 round, but 2 rounds, 3 rounds, all the way up to 7 rounds for all you draft sickos out there, which, hey, I'm one of them. So I'm talking to myself as well. If you have a PFF subscription, you can see all that. Go check out the PFF draft guide as well. That bad boy just dropped earlier this week. We're really proud of that, about that. All of the great PFF data and statistics for 200 prospects types. We got player comp, scheme fits, all that great stuff. Appreciate everybody watching BR's Draft Board Show presented by Snickers. Once again, I am Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus. We'll see you guys next time.